Hello, fellow cinephiles, and welcome back to yet another episode of the Talk Film to Me podcast, where we talk about films here in Kenya and beyond. I'm your host, Nkatha. Let's talk film. So, welcome back. And today we are going to be talking about, first of all, how can I just jump into it? This is a bonus episode, guys. This is a bonus episode. I know. I said we're done with season one. See you soon. But it had to happen. What's a whole season without a bonus? So I'm really happy that we have gone through season one, 10 episodes down. Literally 1, 2, 3, 10. Man, I am honestly so proud of myself. I am so happy for everyone I have had to interact with on this podcast. Everyone who's given me feedback, I am really, really grateful. So yes, like I said, all the films that we have reviewed, the 10 of them were Kenyan. This bonus episode, we go out west. So we talk about Finding Diana in this one. And by West, yes, guys, I mean Nigeria. So Finding Diana is a short film, and Paradigm is, I think I should start there. Paradigm Initiative. So somebody, I don't know whether I should mention their name, so I won't mention it. Somebody from Paradigm put this film in front of my eyes, and I was like, oh wow, this is nice. So if you know me well, you know that I am a tech person, tech girly. That's how they're called. Yeah. Yeah, I work in the fintech industry, and I've always wondered, how do I get tech and film to marry each other? And then boom, Finding Diana happens. And I was like, whoa, this is nice. This is nice. So Paradigm Initiative is an NGO that connects underserved young Africans with digital opportunities and ensures their rights. And by their rights, I mean their digital rights. So basically, this organization champions for digital rights. Now, they have a report which is called the Londa Digital Rights and Inclusion Report. And I think when they were making this film, it was across 22 African countries. Right now, it's across 24 African countries. Just to mention, of course, we have Nigeria and Kenya. We have DRC, that's the Democratic Republic of Congo. We have Senegal. We have Zambia, Zimbabwe, and others. But like those are the areas that I've mentioned are where they have their regional offices. And by there, I mean, again, Paradigm Initiative. So when I looked at this film, I was like, oh, wow, this is quite an educative film. And something interesting, I wanted to ask the scriptwriter. I wish I got a chance to talk with the scriptwriter. How did you know this was going to happen? It's like watching an episode on Simpsons. Because how did the writer know Trump was going to be the president? You know, this film gives you the exact same feeling. So if you haven't watched it, it's on YouTube under Paradigm Initiative. So just go search Finding Diana Paradigm Initiative, you'll find it. Watch it. Trust me, especially if you're into tech and like to keep up with the current trends, this is a really good film. Because yeah, I'll get into it. Let's just start with the introduction of the film. So Finding Diana follows Aisha, and Aisha is a journalist who's looking for her big break. Now, I think we all have this in our lives where in your career you're just waiting for that big break. You're waiting for when people start seeing you, people start seeing what you're doing. So Aisha was like that. She was waiting for her big break. And as the story progresses, we can tell Aisha is this girl who's really swallowed and engrossed by her work. She loves her job, but she takes it a bit too personal. Everything about her work just becomes personal, and she forgets all other areas of her life. So when the film starts, we discover, I think she's trying to run after this girl, and to get an interview or to get her to talk about something that she's chasing, a story that she's looking for, and things that actually now I want to give you guys like the whole synopsis of the story. I just really want to talk about how they brought it out, and I'll mention some parts that were really intriguing for me. First of all, this girl is evicted. She picks her own lock. Yani, she breaks into her own house. So imagine in Nairobi, you find that your landlord you've not paid rent, they have evicted you. So you find that big padlock over there. You pick it and you enter back to your house. Your things are inside. So I was like, that's interesting. That's interesting. So back to the synopsis, guys. So yeah, Aisha's looking for her big story. So she goes into the office, and I think that was her supervisor is like, no, just go home. You always take your stories too personal. And they don't give a lot of context, but from the dialogue they have, what I infer is she probably did a story that brought a lawsuit against the company, so she's been suspended. And guys, sorry if you hear me maybe coughing or something, sinuses, allergies. It has been so hot in Nairobi, and then it started raining out of nowhere. Am I angry? No, actually very happy. That heat was getting very, very serious. It was getting too serious. So I'm actually happy it's rained, even though it affects my whole health. But I'm just happy. It was just too hot. Anyway, back to Diana. Let's continue finding Diana. So as the story progresses, we learn that Aisha, now we really don't know what is her relationship with this guy called Duke. I think they were dating because there was a picture of her and Duke. Something interesting. When Aisha breaks into her house, there are a series of actions that she takes, and I really don't know if that was the intention, but I feel with every action that she took, we were supposed to infer something from it. So first of all is when she turns on the light and we see that picture frame. There's a frame of her, I think, and Duke, and then we see, I'll say it in Swahili, mizani ya haki. What is it? The weights of justice. The weights of justice. Like there's what is it? A statue, and as she opens the door, she doesn't have any electricity. She doesn't have lights. So she's lighting up candles. So when she's lighting up these candles in sequences, that's when I realized, So yeah, there's the weight of justice, and then there's the, what is it called? There is a quote on the wall that talks about change and history. I can't remember it now. I could remember it like 10 minutes ago. Right now I can't remember it sadly. So go watch the film and see that quote. I think it was very inspiring. Then there are trophies. So we can tell she takes justice seriously. She follows history because she mentions her dad in a dialogue with her supervisor. And she's probably won a couple of stories as well. But clearly it's not good enough, because why is she being evicted? Why is she not able to make enough to pay her rent? So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I really liked that part. And I was like, okay, so even these guys, like Nigerians, when they're also making films, they put that into consideration. Something that we don't know. I know film is universal, but we all have different ways of telling our stories. So also for me, watching this film and having a sort of a connection to part of the filmmakers, I happened to talk with the director of this film, and I was like, okay, this is really interesting. It's interesting to see how you guys make your stories. Having interacted with Kenyan directors, me being in the film industry myself, so it's like, this is really interesting to see how you guys bring it out in your own way. And it's nothing different. Like it's the same. We are all doing the same thing. only that we're doing it differently, but we get the message at the end of the day. And of course, that's really, really important. That's really important in any story that you're trying to tell. So anyway, back to the synopsis again. So yeah, we were at Duke. Duke, I think, is the boyfriend, and he complains that every time you just get lost, does it occur to you that people who genuinely care about you? Because every time you disappear, you ghost me. And isn't this what Nairobi relationships are made of? It happens in Nigeria. And I mean, at least for them, this girl is working. This girl is working. But situationships here in Nairobi, huh? But somebody goes to you and then comes back like nothing happened. Like, hi babe, how are you doing? What's up? Acheni hizo tabia. Stop those manners. Stop those manners. Stop that behavior. Stop that behavior. Wacheni hiyo tabia. So anyway, yeah, Duke and Aisha are talking, and first of all, I really don't like how Aisha treats Duke, but it helps with the story. We can tell how invested she is in finding Diana, because she realizes there's a missing girl after she, in quotes, tries to break in. This girl called Riley Mulungu. Mulungu. I can't remember the spelling of the name, but Riley. And Riley tells Aisha there's a girl they kept talking about. She's called Diana, and they are saying the client will like Diana. So of course, so what Aisha makes out is that there is this girl called Diana who's being trafficked and shipped across clients. Now, if you think about that literally, that sounds so sick. So that makes you want to watch the film more. So I appreciated the art of building anticipation, that making it unknown so the audience wants to watch more, like stick around and find out thing. I was like, okay, that's a good tactic. We like it when the story gives us an edge and also gives us more curiosity to want to know what the next scene will unravel for us. So I found that, I gave it a take. I was like, okay, that's good, that's great. So after a sham apology which she makes, she just explains, and the whole time I don't think she even makes an apology. It's just her explaining how important her work is to her. And thankfully the man is a nice man. He's like, okay. And she mentions, Aisha mentions that there's this girl who's lost. Now this part I did not like. Immediately she mentions this person is called Diana. Now, if I told you today to look for a Diana for me, you'll probably go to Instagram, depending on your age, Instagram or Google, or maybe YouTube or TikTok for some people. I think for the Gen Zs. Now see, Gen Zs like me, Gen Zs, the ones who came later on. And even Duke asked her, Diana who? She's like, I don't know. So no surname. How am I going to look for Diana? But eventually, Duke has already punched in some things on the laptop, and boom, the computer is already running. We can see some codes running. I'm like, I like the CGI. I like whatever is going on here in the screen. Looks very techy. But I feel like they should have waited it out for her to explain a bit more. Then it would look like he has solid information to use to look into the internet. I mean, I understand that they portrayed Duke as a professional, a pro in what he was doing in that field of work, but yeah, that part wasn't believable. I think they should have waited until probably he mentioned the name and a few other things. Like when she now mentioned Riley, I was like, okay, now we can work with that. But just Diana, yeah, I was like, that part is lacking. But then again, if I really think, wow, I'm chewing words. If I really think about it here, I'm like, I think they wanted to portray Duke as very good at what he does, because just mentioning the name, he's able to find it. That's how good this guy is. But I guess for the sake of the audience, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I just recently realized that sometimes because you watch a film as a filmmaker, there's some things you're going to look at and you're going to look at them from the perspective of a filmmaker. And the audience really doesn't care about these things sometimes. Sometimes they do, but sometimes they actually do not. So that that observation could go either way. It could be maybe it was too fast, or maybe he's just so good at what he does. So anyway, yeah, Duke gives some information to Aisha, and Aisha heads out immediately and was like, "Ata pretend, stay for a cup of tea." But I was like, okay, clearly shows how Aisha is invested in finding Diana. Diana is this girl who's lost. Then, as she's walking, Duke sends a text to Aisha talking about one of those guys that is an Israeli intelligence. So yeah, Aisha is smiling. She's like, okay, at least I'm getting even more information to break down. And immediately she's kidnapped. She's pushed into a van, a black trash bin, paper bin. You know those black paper bins that we use for the bins for trash? Yeah, that one is put over her head. That was actually a funny scene for me. I think it's because of how wide open her mouth was. I was like, that's funny. Anyway, she's pushed into the car, and when she comes to, she's in a room, and the first thing she sees is I think it was called a legona, a file, and there's this beautiful lady seated there in front of her, saying, "So you're another one." So clearly, what I deduce from that whole scene is this wife thinks that that Aisha is sleeping with the husband. Now the husband is the governor, and she offers money, like, here's money. And Aisha also does not understand. She's like, you think I'm sleeping with your husband? Me, I'm trying to find Diana. And immediately she says Diana, the governor's wife, reacts in some odd way, and she's like, this one doesn't know. And they cover her and drop her to back to where they got her from, or somewhere. So immediately, see, Aisha has been released, calls Duke, hey, I had been kidnapped, I've been released, but I think the wife doesn't know, nini nini, and she gives, some information. And I don't know how she's able to find some sort of information and now goes to where the action is happening, where she thinks she might find Diana. And on getting there, it was actually very, very interesting. For me, this was an aha moment. Maybe the only one I had. Like, aha. So she's standing there and she can hear a lot of machines buzzing, and this whole artificial intelligence, AI talking somewhere. Why did I say artificial intelligence and AI, and it's the same thing? Anyway, you guys get the point. And we can hear them talking about hashtags and whatnot. And the governor comes in, and Aisha says, like, what are you guys trying to do? So let me just give a summary, because it's getting hard for me to explain bit by bit. It feels like I'm giving you guys the whole movie. I'd really like you to go and watch and feel it out on your own. So apparently what was happening, there was no girl called Diana who was lost. It's an artificial intelligence. So Diana is literally the acronyms for this AI. So the government is able to stop. So there was a trending hashtag called hashtag Free Senegal. Oh yeah, something I forgot to mention. This whole thing is dubbed for Senegal. Dubbed for Senegal. I'm not so sure, because again it was in Nigeria. But yeah, they were trying to like quell this hashtag and then elevate another hashtag. So they stopped hashtag Free Senegal and executed hashtag something Ateta is out, I think. I did not understand what that was about. Maybe if I am from that side of the country, I would have. I don't know. Maybe would have if I would have done proper research. Again, I don't know. But I was like, this is so interesting. Now, guys, let me make it even more interesting. So whatever happens here is that the government is trying to hide. You know, when we all know what happens when hashtags trend. We all remember, let me just use one of the best examples that ever happened and brought about cancel culture. When Shafiwero here in Kenya, during his radio days, talked about that babe who was thrown off from several floors from a building and fell all the way down because of a disagreement with a man, sort of. I don't want to go into the details because it will take away from the conversation that I'm trying to have. But people tweeted, a lot of people tweeted it, the hashtag, like cancel Shafiwero. I don't remember if that was the actual hashtag, but I remember rape apologist was also there, and he was cancelled. Like, the internet has a lot of power. So in Senegal, this actually happened back then. So this film, I think, was done in 2021. I stand to be corrected. But elections were held thereafter, and it actually happened, I think, the same year in July, something of the sort. Even more surprising, it happened again this year, on the 5th of February 2024. The president shut down the internet for 2 days. Now imagine you staying without internet. There's so many. First of all, I would suffer. All of my jobs, I do them online. In fintech, it's online. It's financial technology. My podcast is online, guys. How are you going to listen to it? So I was like, what? This happened because the opposition leader was arrested. So, of course, people were tweeting and sharing this hashtag. So he shut down the internet, which means this information isn't moving anywhere. So this film shows exactly that. Now, again, I don't know if I mentioned, but let me repeat. This film is inspired by Londa rights and inclusion reports across 22 African countries. I don't know how Paradigm, or rather the Londa rights, was able to get this, but once it happened, I was like, whoa, wow. Again, if you've been listening to my other episodes, I love when a film is made for impact. And this one, like, it hit the nail on the head. It really shows how some African countries, and actually something funny enough, this whole shutting down internet and locking digital rights of people only happens in African countries. We are the only ones who do this. It's happened in Sudan, I think, when there was a war. But I partly understand, but I feel like shutting down the internet brings about more harm than good. People should have a freedom of speech. People should have a freedom of digital rights should be something that we, like, talk about in Africa as a whole. So sometimes I wonder how the Western part of the world sees us, seeing that we have a disagreement and one person is not happy with what the people are not happy about, and they decide, you know what, I'm going to shut all of you down, and shuts down the internet. I was like, what? This is crazy. This is crazy. I hope our president never gets there. I just hope he never gets there. But it shows you what kind of democracies and what kind of leaders we have in our African countries. These are not leaders that we should be electing. Because if the people say they are not happy with this, these people elected you. Sit down, find a solution. Not shut them down. Shutting them down is even agitating them more. So the minute I finished watching this film, it gave me an aha moment, which I really liked. I was like, whoa, what do you mean? And yeah, it has a happy ending. The governor retracts this whole hashtag, and he doesn't want to go down with it. Apparently Duke had tapped into Aisha's phone so everyone could access whatever was going on. And the people were tagging the governor, like, stop shutting us down and whatnot. I was like, okay, that's a really interesting way of educating people about digital rights. Now, in terms of the filmmaking of this whole educational film, the cinematography, let's start there. The cinematography, I liked some scenes. So, for example, when immediately she comes to after she's been kidnapped, the movements of the camera made us feel like we were inside Aisha's body, made us feel like we were Aisha, and we're trying to look around like, where are we? Where the fuck are we? Where are we? And there's some scenes where I was like, what was the reason for including that shot? There were some shots which I felt like they were unnecessary. So when using handheld shots, it's very important to understand what you're trying to achieve with that shot. What will the audience feel when they're watching this shot? And I feel like for some, it wasn't good. So, for example, when Aisha was coming into Duke's house, I think she went up a flight of stairs, and then when she was coming towards the camera, but it was a handheld shot. Now, if I'm thinking as an audience, I'd probably think this is somebody who's walking towards her, but it wasn't. So I was like, what was the point of this shot? So yeah, so some shots, no, but some were actually like really, really nice. Some were really good. Next, the sound again. Sound is really important for film. So the first few scenes, the sound was not properly synced, and it disturbs you. Inakusumbua, you're like, what is going on here? And I think it's because the motions were slowed down, and they were not able to do the same with the sound. They didn't properly sync with the sound because it was Aisha being thrown out of a club, and it was in slow-mo. Now the cinematography here looks good, like the motions look nice, it's appealing. But now the sound does not go hand in hand with what we're seeing. And I was like, what's going on here? So yeah, the sound was a bit off. Costume and makeup. Now you guys know Nigeria. If there's anything these people can do so well, so well, as their costume and makeup, they never miss. The governor's wife, the first lady, was dressed like really nicely. You're like, yep, you look like the first lady. Even not just from her character, her aura, her personality, the way she presents herself, even the dressing really added on to that very well. And Aisha's dressing also gave out that journalist, like sort of a nerd, but not really a nerd. So I was like, yeah, that's really nice. That helps bring it out. And even her makeup was not as heavy as the governor's wife, which was really nice. I was like, this is great. So for costume and makeup, yeah, it was a good job. Well done. The storyline, the character development. So the character development for Aisha, I mean, apart, if not for that first scene, it develops well. Maybe a bit slowly, but I feel like it's good because it was not completely thrown at us as the audience. So I was like, okay, yeah, that's good. For Duke as well, introducing him in a portrait and then a text, and then we finally see him, I was like, that's really nice. The storyline develops slowly and only unfolds at the end, which I still don't know how to feel about that. I guess the point was to give us that aha moment at the end. So I was like, okay, I think it worked out for you guys. So yeah. My takeout from this film. This film showed, like, when I watched the film and then I went to dig into the internet and realize this actually happened, I was like, wait, what? I know I have mentioned it, but it's still crazy to me that somebody can shut people down for them not to talk, and you're the leader of a country. We are clearly not a free nation. We're not a free continent. And this, I mean, so far, according to my knowledge, this has happened in 2 countries. I mean, I've not done proper research, so I wouldn't know how many countries. So I wondered, how many countries actually go through this? And I mean, this might not have happened to us, but as a filmmaker, if you know about Shamba la Wanyama, you know, like, there is freedom of speech is still not a thing in this country. It's not. Freedom of expression is still not a thing in this country. Because why was Shamba la Wanyama cancelled on Citizen TV? I know it's still available on Viusasa. I am going to watch it and we're going to review it. But I was wondering why. So again, now actually that I think about it, in our internet might not have been shut down, but them removing that film from Citizen TV, where it was accessible to even more people, really tells you something. It means there is a story, like there's some truth to it that we're telling, and you don't want the people to know about it. That's why you're shutting it down. And I think it's the same with this shutting the whole internet thing. You're shutting it down because you don't want people to spread, because there is power in masses. And I remember a certain statement that Aisha says in the film. You are not muffling the guy, you are muffling the masses. Like, you were trying to shut down the masses. You don't want the masses to talk. You do not want the people to talk. I was like, whoa, that's a good way to tell it. So that statement is really, it's a powerful statement. The whole script, I feel, is a really strong educative script. I don't know if I was a filmmaker whether I would do it the same way, but the acting was good. In some places, cringe. I felt like Aisha in some places wasn't able to deliver, but overall, like, she was able to carry the story from beginning to the end. Again, the first scene. If you really want your audience to be hooked, ensure the mistake you make is not in the first or second or third scene. Fourth, fifth scene, uko, fine. First scene, you're going to lose the interest of your audience very quickly, and that's really dangerous. So, overall, how much would I rate this film? I think I'd give it a 6 or a 5.9, but they're about 1 for the story. It's a really educative story. It's an eye-opener. Now, again, as a filmmaker, maybe even as a journalist, like, telling some stories in Africa, maybe, I don't know about other countries, but I know in Kenya, telling some stories, it's a problem. Shamba la Wanyama is a classic example. And now Senegal has proven me right. And I realize that we still don't have the freedom that we think we have. So I think Paradigm Initiative is doing a great job at trying to educate people on digital rights. And this Londa Rights Report, I think, should expand to other countries and tell us, like, what are these people doing with their digital system? Is it working for them? Are they muffling the masses? Do people have the freedom of expression? Are people's digital rights being infringed, or are they respected? So this whole film, I think it's more educative than entertaining. I think that was the main purpose of the film. But hopefully in future, because I know Paradigm has an upcoming film. They've already released the trailer. The trailer is still on their channel, Paradigm Initiative. So also check it out. It's called Undersight. Again, all the films that are going to be coming, that are currently under Paradigm, the ones that I know of, are all tech related. So again, if you're interested in tech, a very good film to watch. If you're interested in digital rights, in cybersecurity, all of that, this is a really good film to watch. not for entertainment, I would say, but mainly for educative purposes. I I know my dad would be proud to know that his daughter is keeping up with current trends, but now actually that I'm an adult, I see the importance. How do you see that this is happening and not talk about it? So yeah, it's a 5.96 for me. So that's the end of today's episode. That's literally all I can say about the film. So if you haven't watched it again, it's on YouTube. Please go watch it. I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. Not again, like I said, not for the entertainment bit, not in terms of dissecting it, but what do you think about digital rights? What do you know about digital rights? Do you even know that you have digital rights? Does Kenya have anything of the sort in place? What do we know about it? So, if you're a filmmaker, again, this is a good idea. Make films for impact, make films for social change. This is a really good story. This and Kanairo, I think, are my most educative, and Between the Rains, most educative. I mean, I'm not saying all the films that I've reviewed are not educative. Nafsi had so many themes that we could talk about all day, but this one is very educative. Talking about digital rights, and not really for education, but like for shining a light upon them, like seeing that this happened. So it's like a report that we now see, and you're like, wait, what? That actually happened. Then from there, we're able to discuss it, and hopefully, policies are put in place. But yeah, let's remember Senegal in our prayers. Whatever the president is doing there is not right. Infringing on people's digital rights, not something that we recommend. So anyway, thanks guys for listening in today's podcast. This was a bonus episode. And yes, again, this podcast does not only review films from Kenya, it's Kenya and beyond. So yeah, it's going to get to those episodes where we talk about films from elsewhere and relate them to our Kenyan industry to try and see what we are doing that's right, what we need to improve. So basically, again, just for the betterment of our industry. But yeah, Kenya and beyond. Kenya and beyond. Thank you for tuning in, guys. Remember, you can find my podcast on Spotify, on Google Podcast, and on Pocket Cast. Until season 2 for real this time, it's a wrap. Bye.